بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أما بعد أخي أبا عطية حفظك الله. Could you expound a little further on the categorization of jihad in terms of ad-daf' and at-talab? Because some people are saying jihad is categorized into two. There's jihad al-talab, where we're going after the enemy, and jihad ad-daf', where it's a defensive type of jihad. And then they say this second type, the defensive type of jihad, there's no conditions whatsoever. Anyone can go and partake in jihad, and therefore people are calling for the youth to go to Gaza and fight. What do you say about this, Akhi?
The repelling of an offensive, occupying assailant, an enemy force, this is defensive combat. What in Arabic is termed as jihad al-dafa', repelling an assailant enemy that has come to the land of the Muslims. And this is a part of our religion. This aspect of the jihad is a part of our deen.
أذن للذين يقاتلون بأنهم ظلموا وإن الله على نصرهم لقدير.
It has been permitted for those who have been oppressed to fight back, and that Allah Azza wa Jal, He is able to assist them. He is able to assist them Jalla wa Ala. So from this ayah in Surah Hajj, it shows the permissibility and the legislation, because the marahil, the stages of jihad in Islam, initially there was no jihad. They were just ordered with patience, remaining patient, al-i'rad, turning away, وهكذا. Then you had the time period where they were permitted, when they migrated, to defend themselves. So there were marahil in stages. But this jihad al-daf', repelling the enemy, Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he discusses it, saying, it's found in the Majmu' al-Fatawa al-Kubra. He says, وَأَمَّا قِتَالُ الدَّفْعِ فَهُوَ أَشَدُّ أَنْوَاعِ دَفْعُ الصَّائِلِ عَنِ الْحُرْمَةِ وَالدِّينِ. He says, as for jihad al-daf' or qital al-daf', the defensive combat, then this is the most difficult type, where you're repelling an assailant from the sanctity of Islam and the religion. فَوَاجِبٌ إِجْمَاعًا. It's an obligation by way of ijma'. فَالْعَدُوُ الصَّائِلِ الَّذِي يُفْسِدُ الدِّينِ. The enemy that's an assailant that corrupts the religion وَالدُّنْيَا and the worldly life of the people. لَا شَيْءَ أَوْجَبْ بَعْدَ الْإِيمَانِ مِنْ دَفْعِهِ. There's not a matter which is of greater importance after iman than repelling him. فَلَا يُشْتَرَطْ لَهُ شَرْطٌ. So there's no conditions which are set for it. بَلْ يُدْفَعْ بِحَسْبِ الْإِمْكَانِ. Rather, he is to be repelled in that which is possible, or within the ability of the people. وَقَدْ نَصَّ عَلَى ذَلِكَ الْعُلَمَاءِ. And the scholars have pointed to this, أصحابنا وغيرهم, from the Hanabila and other than them. فيجب التفريق بين دفع الصائل الظالم الكافر وبين طلبه في بلاده. So it's important to make a distinction between repelling the enemy that has occupied the land of the Muslims and going to seek him, which is this a different type of combat, jihad al-talab. They're not seeking them, they are now repelling them. Now repelling, we've taken in the speech of Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, that he said that this is from the obligations of the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He also mentions in other works that the majority of the wars of Banu Israel, they were jihad al-daf'. They were repelling an enemy that attacked them. And he uses the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal to support this.
ألم تر إلى الملأ من بني إسرائيل من بعد موسى إذ قالوا لنبي له ابعث لنا ملكا نقاتل في سبيل الله قال هل عسيتم إن كتب عليكم القتال ألا تقاتلوا قالوا وما لنا ألا نقاتل في سبيل الله وقد أخرجنا من ديارنا وأبنائنا فلما كتب عليهم القتال تولوا إلا قليلا منهم والله عليم بالظالمين.
The ayat in Surah Al-Baqarah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentioned, have you not heard or have you not come across the affair of the group from the leaders from Banu Israel after Musa, when they said to their prophet, ابعث لنا ملكا نقاتل في سبيل الله, bring forward a king from amongst us so that we may fight in the path of Allah. So the reason why they wanted to fight is وما لنا ألا نقاتل في سبيل الله وقد أخرجنا من ديارنا وأبنائنا. Why is it that we will not fight in the path of Allah when we have been expelled from our lands and our children? So it shows that there was jihad al-daf'. The enemy had already occupied their lands, they're taking their children. So they're saying, look, we want to defend ourselves. Bring forward a king who will represent us as a leader, and then we will go and defend ourselves. So this is also another point that Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah mentioned. Now here, Ibn Taymiyyah's first speech, what does he say? There's no shurut. There are no regulations. Then here he says, bringing the ayah as a proof for Jihad al-Daf that Bani Israel, they said, bring forward a king. So what does this indicate? It indicates that they wanted to fight, but they wanted a king to lead them. مما يدل على, it indicates there should be an amir even in Jihad al-Daf. Do not be fooled by those claims. You will find, if you look online, lots of people saying when it comes to Jihad al-Daf, repelling the enemy, there is no regulations whatsoever. In fact, you don't even need an amir. You don't need a ruler or someone to guide the Muslims. And this is not correct. In essence, even in Jihad al-Daf'in, there should be someone who is leading the Muslims. This ayah that we've taken from Surah Al-Baqarah is an evidence, and the people of knowledge have also mentioned this.
So practically speaking, Akhi, we have an enemy that's made its intention public. They want to attack a Muslim land. So you're saying the people in this Muslim land, before they defend their deen, their lives, their property, their honor, they need to ask permission from the ruler. Is this what you're saying?
Al-Imam Malik rahimahullah, the Imam of Dar al-Hijrah, he mentions when he was asked, وَسُئِلَ عَنِ الْعَدُوء يَنْزِلُ بِالسَّاحِلِ مِنْ سَوَاحِلِ الْمُسْلِمِينَ يُقَاتِلُونَهُم بِغَيْرِ اسْتِئْمَارِ الْوَالِي. He was asked about an enemy who finds himself on the coast, from the coasts of the Muslim lands. Are they to fight against him without any istimar, putting a ruler over them? فَقَالَ أَرَى إِنْ كَانَ الْوَالِي قَرِيبًا مِنْهُمْ أَنْ يَسْتَأْذِنُوهُ فِي قِتَالِ. He says, I see that if the ruler is nearby, they're able to get to him quickly, that they should seek permission from him in fighting against them قَبْلَ أَنْ يُقَاتِلُوهُم, before they wage war. وَإِنْ كَانَ بَعِيدًا لَمْ يَتْرُكُوهُم حَتَّى يَقَعُوا بِهِمْ. And if he's distant, then they're not to leave the occupying assailants as they are, in order for them to attack first. So Imam Malik rahimahullah, he's saying that even in the instance where the enemy is on our lands, we still need someone to be governing the Muslims. And as Shaykh Salih al-Fawzan, he mentions, and I came across a clip of his where he discusses this, because if we do not have someone who is governing the Muslims, what happens is we become these pockets, these umbrellas of fighting armed wings, and what happens is we come back against ourselves when you have no one to lead us. And this is the reality. It happened in Syria, and it happened in many places. Those who are fighting, the problems, and he turned back to them, and you find that someone who's firing at you from the back, saying, what's going on here? The enemy is in front of me. This is because there was no imam that they all agreed to be the imam. And what happens is, naturally, every one of those fighting groups, those armed wings, they want their ruler or their leader to be the leader of all of the Muslims. So I have to establish him, even if it leads to killing others. Wallahu musta'an. So there's a hikmah why there should be an imam, even in this instance. Another example is in the speech of Imam Ahmed rahimahullah, in the Masail of Abdullah, who is his son. He had some Masail that he asks his father. He said, سمعت أبي يقول إذا أذن الإمام القوم يأتيهم النفير فلا بأس أن يخرجوا. If the leader permits for them to go out to fight against the people, then there's no harm. Abdullah, he said to his father, Imam Ahmed, فإن خرجوا بغير إذن الإمام. If they're to go out without permission of the Imam, قال لا. He said, no, إلا أن يأذن الإمام, except if the Imam permits. إلا أن يكون يفاجئهم أمر من العدو ولا يمكنهم أن يستأذنوا الإمام. Except if they're suddenly attacked by the enemies and they're not able to seek permission from the Imam. فأرجو أن يكون ذلك دفعا من المسلمين. He said, I hope that this is considered repelling from the side of the Muslims. Arju, I hope. He was not even definite, Imam Ahmed rahimahullah, that even in this instance, he says, I hope. So it shows us how the people of knowledge from the past and present approach this issue. When you're in an instance of Jihad al-Daf, repelling the enemy, we should have a real leader. Our leader, he's the one who will fall under his commands. And if we're not able to do that, and they're to attack us, we fear they're going to destroy us, annihilate us, then everyone will defend himself. So this is a matter that many of the people confuse.
I believe the reason why there's confusion is because people are confusing between two types of jihads. I was listening to one of the mashayikh and he said, Jihad al-Daf', there's another type which falls under it, and this is Jihad al-Daf' al-Khas. Jihad al-Daf' al-Khas, the defensive jihad which is limited to an individual, a person defending his own life, his own property, his own honor. This is a jihad al-daf al-khas. This is the type where the enemy is standing next to you, is about to kill you, or come and rob your house, or do something to your honor, your property, your life, and so on. This person defending and warding him off, they said this is jihad al-khas. So some people think that the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ "Man qutila duna mali fahuwa shahid," the one who's killed defending his life is a shaheed, the one who's killed defending his honor is a shaheed, to the end of the hadith. They use this specific type of jihad where a person is being attacked individually, and they apply it to a whole dawla, the whole country, and say there is no conditions, you just fight and do whatever you want. But you've made it clear, Jazakallah khairan. I'll play the clip here of the sheikh that I'm talking about. Inshallah, it's clear for everyone.
وهناك جهاد أخص من جهاد الدفع، وهو الدفع الخاص، بأن يأتي عدو إلى مسلم يريد نفسه أو دينه أو عرضه أو ماله، فيشرع له أن يقاتله، فإن قتله فلا دية له ولا مقابل ولو كان مسلما، وإن قتل فهو شهيد في سبيل الله. وهذا يسمى بالدفع الخاص عند بعض أهل العلم.
طيب أخي بارك الله فيك. So I've understood now, alhamdulillah, that jihad al-daf, if it's affecting a whole dawla, then we still need to go back to the Amir and seek his permission and have a wali, a ruler over us, so that this jihad is coordinated and it doesn't lead to civil war. طيب, the evidence that you mentioned, أَلَمْ تَرَ إِلَى الْمَلَأِ مِنْ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ, for jihad al-daf and appointing a ruler, this evidence is from the nations before us. Is there any evidence from the Prophet ﷺ that relates to this ummah directly?
From the evidences which indicate this from this nation is the battle of Al-Khandaq wal-Ahzab, which is approximately 6th year of the Hijrah. What happened? The kuffar of Quraysh, like we discussed, among other kuffar, they gathered to uproot Islam from Al-Madinah. They came all the way to Medina as defense. Lakin, who was their leader? The Prophet ﷺ. So he was still the imam fi jihad daf'in, in a jihad which was defensive. So it shows that in essence we should have a ruler who is governing the Muslim body.
طيب, let's apply this practically now. Imagine now, in this particular situation, the brothers in Gaza definitely need physical assistance, they need manpower. If the people living under Muslim rulership, Muslim countries, want to go and assist them, do they need to go to their rulers and ask permission in order for them to go to Gaza and assist them?
They say if the imam is adil, he's a just ruler, then we should seek his permission. If he's a just ruler, we should seek his permission. This is what a number of the people of knowledge have mentioned. And he's looking at the masalih and the harms and the pros and the cons, the vices and the gains which are coming from his people going abroad to help. So it goes back to him.
طيب, what about a land like this? Non-Muslim countries, do they need to seek permission from their rulers before traveling abroad?
Even in this instance, what still needs to be looked at is the scenario. Right now, there's no possibility of going abroad and fighting. It's important to know this, because there are people who are making this call and they're saying we can't sit here. Same way, just you have people saying protesting, you have others that take it to another level and say protesting is not enough, we need to physically be there to support them. And this is truly assisting our brothers. Okay, now dealing with this affair, first of all, the other Muslim nations that have remained silent, I'm going to digress, but it's an important point. The other Muslim nations who have chosen to remain silent on certain issues or have not given the support which is required and left the door open, led other people to come in and begin to discuss these issues. Now I came across a maqta, Abdul Hayy Yusuf, who is considered to be one of the scholars of Sudan. He's considered to be a main return point in Sudan, who's an Ikhwani. They gathered a number of these other groups, they gathered and they issued a fatwa that is jihad daf, and it's important that the Muslims in Gaza are supported. So they have a fatwa issued by a committee of scholars, and we still don't have even those who are considered to be from the Ikhwan Muslimin or these other sects within the Muslims going in. Because they will say, oh, these Wahhabis in Saudi, they're sleeping. طيب, okay, your ulama, they have spoken. What are you doing? Why are you not there? They're not there because they know the reality of the matter. It's not possible to get into Gaza, nor is it possible to get into these lands anyway. So you throwing yourself out there, this is just harming yourself. And this is a reality. This is a harm to yourself. So don't be fooled by these people who call you and they say, go out and fight. You're not going to get there, believe me. And the blood of the believer, it has value with Allah Azza wa Jal. It has value with Allah. You can't just throw yourself. وَلَا تُلْقُوا بِأَيْدِيكُمْ إِلَى التَّهْلُكَةِ. Do not cast yourself into destruction. And I'll give you an example. I came across a young man who was about in his early 20s, I think. 2021. I think his name is Inic Arsalan, who's from Turkey. His story, many of the people don't know. He made after watching what's going on in Gaza, he made a decision to go to Gaza to help, to go to Palestine. He traveled, he said the best way was to go through Syria. You can go through and perhaps go south from there. He decided to make that trip. He went missing. They couldn't find him. No contact. Eventually, a man who was with him, he got in touch with his parents and he told them that هو في فرع فلسطين. He's in the Palestinian, it's called, it's a nickname, the Palestinian compound or the Palestinian prison. Look it up, فرع فلسطين. It's also referred to as فرع 325. This is a prison. They say the conditions are unimaginable. Torture, abuse, killings, in fact even sexual assault. And there are people who have put statements online as to what they've gone through in that. So what happens? So, ibadallah, it's important that we're not taking by our desires and that we're weighing things based on Quran and Sunnah. This, in essence, Jihad al-Daf', yes, we accept it, it's part of our deen. Walakin, if there's no way to get there, then what can you do? Besides make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If there's no way of assisting, then we do what's within our ability.
Okay, what about financial assistance? Do you recommend us sending money to the people affected in Gaza to aid them financially?
If you have a trustworthy route, a trustworthy, legit route that can bring that money to the people of Gaza for the purchase of food and drink and whatever they require, this is amr tayyib, this is khair, this is good. So if you're able to do that, do it.
Akhi Abu Atiyah, Jazakallah khairan for clarifying this misconception. May Allah reward you. The matter is clear now. Barakallah fikum. Subhanakallah bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.